to the Connect the Dots podcast. Jeffrey Klein has conversations with a diverse array of successful people, sharing their stories to educate, inspire, and entertain. Here is your host, Jeffrey.
My guest today is ukulele performer Jake Shimabukuro, who over the past 2 decades has proved that there isn't a style of music that he can't play, whether it's jazz, rock, blues, bluegrass, folk, or even classical. On perhaps the unlikeliest of instruments, the ukulele, which he first picked up at the age of 4. Jake's incredible journey has taken him from local phenom to YouTube sensation, from playing tiny clubs to headlining the world's most prestigious concert venues like the Hollywood Bowl, Lincoln Center, and the Sydney Opera House. He's performed on the biggest TV shows and has released a string of award-winning, chart-topping albums. Just recently, he was nominated by President Joe Biden to serve as a member of the National Council of the Arts. Jake, the Hawaii-born virtuoso, has taken the ukulele to points previously thought impossible. And in the process, he's reinvented the applications for this tiny, heretofore unappreciated 4-string instrument, causing many to call him the Jimi Hendrix of the ukulele. Aloha, Jake.
Aloha. Thank you for having me. And that's a very generous introduction there.
Well, it's remarkable. And as I mentioned, I've been listening to your latest album, The Jake and Friends, which is this collaboration with incredible other artists that I think it's to me, one of the things I find really remarkable about music is when people collaborate. And I've grown up, my father being a jazz musician, his favorite is Miles Davis. And he says one of the things Miles did really well was get other musicians, whoever was the great talent at the time would bring in. And I think music is really elevated when you collaborate.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I like to kind of start at the beginning. So where were you born? Although we kind of mentioned where in Hawaii, we can get to that. And what did your parents do for a living?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. And my dad was and still is a carpenter, finishing carpenter. And my mom worked as a, server in the restaurants and bars. And we, it's kind of some very simple life growing up. I have a younger brother. His name is Bruce, and we both played the ukulele, as kids. And my mom played, so she was our first teacher. In fact, when I was about 4 years old, she sat me down, taught me a few chords, and I just fell in love with it. And that, I don't know, and I still love it just as much, if not even more, than I did when I first picked it up. So.
Now, you picked it up as a kid and you played and obviously found that you had some talents there. Did you ever consider, as a kid, people say, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was there something other than musician or that you thought, oh, I want to be this when I grow up that other kids have, a surfer or something more, a hula dancer, I don't know, something like that?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Always loved working with kids and when I first started playing the ukulele, I mean, I was very much a late bloomer.
Four is late to pick up the instrument.
No. I mean, when I was picking it up, there was really nothing. I don't think any of my teachers or instructors thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today. But I just loved it. I mean, even if I were just strumming basic chords, I was just so happy, doing that. And the ukulele, it's it only has 4 strings and you have 2 octaves, but yeah, there's just something about the sound of it, that I don't know, brought me so much joy every time I had a chance to sit down and pick it up and strum it. I mean, I just loved it, so and now I get to kind of share, this instrument with people all over the world, and it's such an honor, so yeah, it's so much
fun. And was
there?
Did you ever try other instruments? Is it the type of thing where you as soon as you started strumming, you're like, oh, this is it? Or did you ever contemplate or consider or try other instruments?
I never had the desire to play other instruments. I think because the ukulele was challenging enough, for me. It's funny because it's a very simple instrument, but at the same time, it's very it can be very difficult because you're so limited, right?
Mhm.
It's very limited in range, and there's a lot of I don't want to say limitations, but I guess there's you have to kind of be I think you have to rely a bit more on creativity, to make up for some of the things that you don't have on the instrument. And that's so to me, I love that, because it's like it's almost like problem solving. Every time you tackle a new song or a new piece, it's like, okay, how are we gonna make that translate, or how are we gonna interpret this, or how do I capture that feeling, or that essence, or that kind of expression. So much of it is just being very creative with your touch, your timbre, your sense of dynamics, rhythm, and all of these things come into play. And so it's very satisfying musically, when it all comes together. And then at times it can be very frustrating, but that's what I love about it.
It's interesting. I do a workshop sometimes about storytelling, and I do an exercise where people have to tell a story in 6 words, which goes back to Ernest Hemingway and flash fiction. And one of the things I read recently about that was that limitations kind of evoke creativity. That it's actually when you don't have the whole orchestra to yourself, that you have to really focus on, okay, how am I going to approach this and be creative to make it more than it is. And it sounds like that's kind of what you've done with the ukulele. What was
Yeah.
the first song you learned that you're like would be comfortable playing for somebody else? Was it a Hawaiian tune, or is it a pop song? Like, what was your musical influences, and which one did you love? Like, oh, I can play this on.
Oh, sorry. You kind of cut out a little bit, Jeffrey. What was that again? What
Oh,
were some of?
so I actually asked 2 questions at once. So let me.
Yeah, no.
What was the first song you learned that you were like, okay, I know this well enough that I could now play it for other people?
Oh, okay.
Like your go-to now. You're like, okay, I know this one really well.
Yeah. Well, there was a song that I used to play as a kid. It was one of the first songs that I felt like, oh, it would be fun to perform this in front of an audience. And it was a song called Crazy G, which is like it was kind of an old standard on the ukulele, but it sounded something like, it was like, and then it was just a
I love it.
and it got progressively faster and faster, as the song went on. So it was just such a fun tune. And I think I remember playing that at like several talent shows, when I was a kid. But I was super shy, like I mean, I was really shy. It wasn't until I was maybe 13 years old, maybe 12 or 13, that I actually had I guess, had the courage to get up in front of an audience. And it was over at my high school when I was a freshman, and play in front of the school. And I tell you, it was like the scariest thing I ever did. But I just remember after playing the song and receiving that the applause, from the audience, it was such a rush. And then I think it was that day that I realized, wow, I really do enjoy performing.
Mm. And so did you, at that point or shortly thereafter, decide like, this is what I'm going to pursue?
No, I think still back then, I didn't really know what I was gonna do. I When I was a senior in high school, I met a couple of guys, and we kind of formed a little band. And we played around town in Hawaii. We called ourselves Pure Heart. And it was my first band. We did a lot of traditional and contemporary island music, Hawaiian music, um, and it was fun. I mean, we were playing weddings, graduation parties, and all kinds of fun stuff. And we even recorded a couple records. And but then after that, I just I was just a sideman in the band. We had a lead singer, And so I loved it because I could just hang back, and then, and then when there was time for like the instrumental solo part, I would kind of step up and do my 16 bars or whatever, and then step back, into the background and just strum away and play, do little fills here and there. So I love that role. And I played in a couple other bands after that, but it wasn't until I think 2000 or 2001 when I kind of started my solo, career. And that was really scary. I mean, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to do that because, well, for one, I don't sing. And back then, my biggest inspiration for playing the ukulele was a man named Ota-san. He was a ukulele instrumentalist, and he released tons and tons of records. I mean, he was just really the first ukulele virtuoso. He and his teacher named Eddie Kamai, they were like the two first ukulele virtuosos. So, they were my biggest inspiration for playing. But when I first started, I was like, how am I gonna, make it as a solo ukulele player? I just didn't have the confidence. So I almost kind of gave it up, and I started just teaching, and I opened up an ukulele school and things like that. But on the side, I was still performing, like doing these, playing at restaurants or like little coffee shops, and because I loved playing, but then in 2001, I got my first record deal offer, and it was with Sony Music Japan, and it was a 7-album deal. So I was like, oh my goodness, yes. I was like, wow, this is a huge commitment. Yeah. So I ended up signing with them, and and that was like, that kind of started, all of this, and I just loved it. I love the challenges of, just the challenge of writing songs for recording projects, and coming up with arrangements and new ideas. It was just such a blast. And of course, it wasn't easy. It was hard. It's still, there's still so many challenges. I mean, even today, but I love it, man. It's just, I feel I'm just so grateful, to have this opportunity, to do something that I love doing. And just the fact that I think it helps to bring people some joy, bring something positive into the community. And so, man, that's a real privilege and honor right there. So I'm loving all the opportunities and the things I get to do right now.
Now, one of the things that I think you got known for is kind of breaking out of the traditional ukulele songbook and doing sort of pop songs and other genres. How did you decide to do that? And how did you find people receiving, wait a minute, I know this song. This isn't, this is something that I can, whether it's Beatles or, or Queen or whatever, all of a sudden it seems like people are like, wow, that's awesome.
Well, I think that's one of the things, that I always loved about Ota-san is that he, of course he played traditional Hawaiian music, but he would also venture off into things like Malagueña, or he had an arrangement he did like Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, and then he was a phenomenal jazz musician, so he could improvise so well, and he would play all these standards, and so I think there were all these different genres of music that he played. And so every time as a kid, I remember like hearing him play and just being so blown away, because he would be playing things that I wouldn't expect to hear on the ukulele. And I think that's what kind of that's what I love doing. I love trying to tackle songs that you wouldn't expect to hear on the instrument, or even adapting different techniques, right, from other instruments to the ukulele, and figuring out how you can use them and apply them, right?
Can you give me an example of that? Can you show me like what you mean by that in terms of?
Yeah, so like like coming up with different ways of attacking the string, so you can get more like this is more like a koto type of sound. these harp like these types of even like here, this is kind of like some flamenco style strumming. Or like guitar tapping, you can do these all these types of techniques, right, that I kind of borrow from other instruments. When you figure out ways to apply them to the ukulele, I think it inspires me, to try to write things or arrange things a certain way so that I can incorporate a lot of these techniques, right? Even like these harmonic ideas. Bends. So I mean, just things like that I don't know. I think it's so cool that you can use these things on the instrument, right, and kind of help to just kind of.
Jake, you make it seem effortless. Please tell me that you work really hard to get there, because I find it remarkable.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's just sometimes I'll just like, if I'm like when I would work on certain pull-offs, like things like this, like sometimes I would just be sitting for hours and just doing until you can kind of get it, and it just becomes part of your muscle memory, I guess, in a way. Even Bela Fleck used to show me these really cool banjo rolls that I used to kind of like these kinds of rolls, and
he's one of my dad's favorites, Bella. He's amazing.
Oh yeah, gosh, he's definitely one of my biggest heroes. So
in terms of influences, because you told me about the ukulele influences of the virtuosos. Obviously, Beatles had a huge impact on you, both in terms of how did you learn about? Is all this music did you just decide, like, you seem to have a very eclectic musical taste, and how did that come about? Where how did you learn about new artists and genres and things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the Beatles, and I love I mean, I just love rock and roll, right? So that's why I kind of gravitate toward a lot of those guitar heavy tunes. I mean, even in our show now, I mean, we incorporate a lot of kind of like these rock riffs, like like I might quote something from Sunshine of Your Love or something, or LaGrange, or we've been doing you mentioned earlier, I think, Bohemian Rhapsody, I think before when we were talking, and another one we've been doing recently is We Will Rock You, and that's been a fun one. The crowd gets into it, they do they start stomping their feet. So yeah, it's just fun. I love things like that where you can just where everyone feels like they're involved, part of it. I think that's what makes it fun, because it's not just a collaborative thing with the musicians on the stage, but it's such a collaborative experience, with the audience and just everyone, the production staff and the ushers and the volunteers, and everyone that's a part of making that night happen. So when you have those moments like that where there might be a spontaneous sing-along or something, it just I don't know, it feels so good, because it's like in that moment, you just feel so connected with everyone.
I love that, and that's what music can do, is really connect with people. So you've played lots, kind of across the world and in different places. Is there one place where you go, wow, you're really surprised? Your 13-year-old self, like, I can't believe I'm either in this place or talking to this person. Is there any one place where you're like, pinch me, is this real?
Yeah, about I remember like 10 years ago, maybe a little more than 10 years ago, I was I was over in the UK, and we performed at the Royal Variety Performance, and I was there with Bette Midler. We did a duet of one of my favorite Beatles songs we played in my life, and it was for the royal family. And after the show, Bette and I got to go backstage, and we actually got to meet the Queen. We got to meet Queen Elizabeth, and we both got to shake her hand and talk with her, and it was just such an incredible moment. I mean, I remember just thinking to myself, like, oh my goodness, not only am I here, with Bette Midler, one of my favorite singers of all time, but we're both here meeting the Queen. It was just surreal.
Playing Queen to meeting the Queen. There's the
Yeah,
big
yeah,
story.
exactly.
Well, my wife is British, so for me, the royal family is pretty amazing. And then I'm now a dual citizen, having lived in England for a good long time. And yeah, it's she seems like she was as remarkable as she seemed. And I think it's something that I've come to really embrace in terms of that culture. And really what what it is, part of the reason I tell people that I'm obsessed with purple, which I am, is because it honors the royal family. So that's my way of honoring it.
Yeah.
What advice would you have if someone has an interest in being a musician? It's not an easy thing to do. And my father, who's been a musician for years, that wasn't his job. That's a side gig. He does it for fun. And but if someone decides, like, I want to be a musician, what advice could you give them?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that always stuck with me is always, focus on being a good person first and a good musician second. I mean, and I think that resonates true in whatever field, you get into, probably, so, um, and that's something I always try to focus on, like, I mean, because music is all about connecting with people, and sometimes it's easy to forget that you're only a musician or an artist, or when you're on stage, right, doing your thing, but you're it's like, sometimes the most important stage is everything around the stage, right? And how you treat people, your work ethic, um, the your humility, the kind of your gratitude, the kindness that you show people, and that's, to me, that's all the stuff that I want my music to express. And and so for me, I know that I have to strive, to live that way, right? Because if you make that a habit, right, then it just kind of it starts to show in everything that you do, including your music, your artistry, or whatever you're passionate about. And so that's something I that always kind of sticks with me, and I try to think about a lot.
I think that's phenomenal. And it's not what I think you'll expect to hear from someone who's a performer necessarily, but I think it's the stage that makes a lot isn't necessarily the stage you're performing on, but it's everything else.
Yeah.
Jake, you've performed for the Queen, you've won awards, you've been on the TED stage. By most measurements, you are a success. But how does Jake define success?
That's a tough one. I feel like my answer would change from week to week.
I like it's probably accurate.
Yeah. I mean, it really does. It just I know you have kids. You're a dad, and I'm a dad too. I have two boys, and one of my favorite things in the world now, like, is because they're into sports now. So like going to their games and watching their games, or even just their practices, like oh man, it's like the greatest thing. It's not, and it's just I just love watching them play, because they look so happy, and they're they have good games and bad games, but it doesn't matter, it's just I love that. And I think that's the hardest part about touring now is, like when I have to miss their games every once in a while. I try not to, but sometimes I have to. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you just remind me. So I that connects with me, aligns with me, because all my children play sports, and seeing them perform on the athletic court, because volleyball and basketball is really fulfilling. And I think part of the reason I'm lucky, and it sounds like you're the same with it. So I think of my son Ethan. He's played basketball. He's 13, and when he was maybe starting 3-4 years ago, he would be on a team, and he was on a team that was not very good. Like, they played a season and did not win a game. But what I observed watching him play is that it didn't matter to him. I mean, yeah, he wanted to win, but he has a joy for the sport in a way that he's smiling. Win, lose, draw. He's, what's nice now is that he's on a team right now that's in the playoffs and is undefeated. So it's good to see the other side too.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with both. I have twin daughters who played competitive volleyball, and you've seen the highs and the lows. And I think, again, the important part is, do you enjoy playing? It's about the playing part. Winning is bonus, sure, but I think it's the joy of participating in that sport. Do your children are into music? What's the story there?
Yeah, they both love music, but I think right now sports is their main focus. Like, they both play basketball, and they do soccer and all that, and it's awesome. But we're learning how difficult it can be to juggle schedules now. Like, well, he has practice here, and then he has a game here, and then we got to drop them off and then come pick them up, and then and then we got split up, and you go to his game, I'll go to his game. So it's
I relate to, and when people say, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a taxi driver for my children."
Yeah.
I think I was supposed to do something like that. That's my primary gig.
Yeah. But it's no, but yeah, and it's the same for us. I'm sure it's like that for a lot of families, But man, I'm just so grateful that our kids have that opportunity. Like, I wasn't into sports when I was growing up, so so this is a whole new world for me, and one that I'm enjoying immensely. So.
And I think I know some of the answer to this, but I'll ask him. So, you sometimes have to be motivated to want to work on this song or that song. So what inspires you and gets you going to want to really take on the challenge of something new, or find a new way of tackling a song?
I don't know. I'm always motivated. Definitely. It's just sometimes I don't have the amount of time that I'd like to put in. I mean, before I got married, and before I was when I was single and didn't have any kids and all that, like, I mean, that's all I would do. I would just spend as much time as I wanted to, right? Just practicing and working on stuff, and of course that brought me a lot of joy and fulfillment. But yeah, then when I met my wife, and especially once we had kids, it was, your priorities change a little bit, but at the same time, it's you're experiencing all these new things and feeling all these new things, and to me, that's what inspires creativity, right? That's what inspires your artistry, and now you can tap into this, just a deeper well of emotions, right, when you play. So even though I don't have the same amount of time to dedicate to the like the more physical aspects of playing, right, like actually working on techniques. I mean, I still have a little bit of that, but but there's still two other uh, two other things that you work on, right? Because you have the physical part, but then there's also the mental side, and then the emotional side, right? So through my family and through these new experiences now, I feel like I am putting more. I'm gaining more on the emotional and the mental, philosophical side of my music and things like that. But so like, especially when I'm on tour or when I do have the time, then I can work on the physical parts of it. But yeah, so that's good. But plus, as you get older too, you don't want to, your hands they're not as they can't handle as much practice anyway. So yeah.
Do your
Not
kids
like
have a favorite song? Do they make requests of you? Hey, Dad, can you play this?
yeah, sometimes, yeah, my oldest son, when I talk to him, he'll always ask, hey, what songs did you play tonight? Oh, how come you didn't play the song? So yeah. Yeah.
Jake, I'm curious. You have, I think, helped propel the ukulele into some places people never expected. I mean, you talked about that. What do you think is the next trend in sort of ukulele playing? You talked about the people that inspired you. You're probably inspiring a new generation. What do you think the next thing is in terms of the instrument and its performance and its place in the musical pantheon?
Yeah, I think that I don't know, my hope is that because there's just so many talented ukulele players, out there now. And I guess my hope is that, the there's there will be ukulele players that really specialize, in a certain genre or field or style. And like when you think of the guitar, right? And you can, if you think about jazz guitar, right? I mean, like if you just said in general, like who's your favorite guitar player? I mean, it just depends, right? It depends like what genre you're talking about.
Right.
And even within each genre, there's like these like micro genres or sub genres, right? Or styles. So yeah, so I hope that, like one day there's going to be like, there will be the Pat Metheny of the ukulele and the Yo-Yo Ma of the ukulele, and the Yngwie Malmsteen of the ukulele. I mean, all these things, right? You just when you think about all these different guitar players, like yeah, I mean, I just like Jeff Beck was one of my heroes. Jeff Beck, Satriani, Hendrix, um, Van Halen. But then there was also people like Elliot Fisk and John Williams and Pepe Romero, more on the classical side, right? That I love listening to as a kid. And then you got like Paco de Lucia, right? But then you got like Al Di Meola, who's they're kind of it's just like its own thing. He had his own sound, his own style, his own approach. I love all the LA guitar quartet, Los Angeles guitar quartet stuff. I love that kind of music. They'll be like the Los Angeles ukulele quartet, like doing all these incredible arrangements, and then
I
just
think
more.
I think there is a ukulele group in England. I remember looking at it. I have to look
There's
at.
there's the ukulele orchestra of Great Britain.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
there's
it.
that ensemble. They're incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm hoping that there will be a lot more of that, in the future. Because can you imagine if like there was like an ukulele player who started out, from the time they were a kid, but devoted their whole life to just learning to play Bach,
Right.
Or there's just someone who's just totally dedicated their entire life to learning to play bebop on the ukulele.
Cool.
I mean, so I mean, there's like because I mean, all of these different genres, you can spend your entire life right working on it and not master it. So And for me, I always just kind of jumped all over the place, but I love all the different styles and yeah, and we definitely have fun. So yeah.
So that's kind of your vision for the future of ukulele. What's next for you?
For me, oh well, my dream, well, musically, I think my dream is I'd like to one day um, compose, a piece for ukulele and orchestra. Like yeah, like write my own ukulele concerto one day, and so that would
I love
be
it.
that would be a dream come true.
We have to wait till the kids are older and you have some more time, but
Yeah.
start now and see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a couple rapid fire questions. They don't always
Okay.
go rapid, but we'll try and see how it goes. So, if a movie was made about your life, who would you want to play you?
Oh, wow.
I know that's
Oh man, that's a tough one. Oh man. Uh, I don't know why, but the name that keeps coming to my is Tom Hanks. But
that would be
'cause
interesting. But he's
I love
he's talented enough. I think he could do it.
I love Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Should stories always have happy endings?
Um. oh, um. I would say yes.
You want them to.
Yeah.
You're I get it.
I, I'm kind of like, well, if it's not happy yet, then maybe it's not really the end of the story.
I like
right?
that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite emoji?
Just the happy face. I use it all the time. Maybe too much.
Now this is a tough one, but do you have a favorite? Can you name one of your favorite songs, all-time songs?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think Schubert's Ave Maria is one of my favorites. That's so beautiful. And Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah too. It's great.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite social media platform? I know you're a sensation on YouTube. What's the one you like to use most?
Oh, well, the one that I'm most familiar with is Facebook. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not too computer.
You're not a TikTok star?
Yeah.
Not yet.
I have a really good friend who helps me with that, but yeah.
There you go. Can you name a book that left a lasting impression on you?
Well, as a kid, for me, it was The Giving Tree.
Oh, how good is that? I love that book. In fact, I have it right over there. I swear to God.
Yeah.
It's literally on the shelf over there. Can you name one of your favorite movies? I'm a huge movie guy, so I'm just curious if you can name one that sticks in your mind.
Yeah. Forrest Gump. I can watch Forrest Gump over and over. Yeah.
And then the Tom Hanks there, yeah. So that's what's the one thing you can't live without?
Let's see. The one thing I can't live without. Gosh.
Aside from your ukulele.
Man. That's a tough one. Let's see. Oh man, that's a tough one. I get maybe my fishing pole. I just love fishing. Yeah.
All right. Now this is actually a hard one at the end. Last one, which is, if you could be credited with inventing something, what would you want to be known for having invented?
Oh, that's a good one too. Shoots.
What time will you be?
Wow, man, these are tough ones.
I'm sorry.
I guess I don't know why. I'm just gonna make something up. Maybe the toaster oven.
There we go. Everyone needs a good toaster. Well, thank you for indulging my questions, which are somewhat silly. So is there anything at the moment that you are kind of, you've been very kind to share with me that you want to share about what you're up to, where, something that you want to promote right at the moment? What's the latest that if people want to find out more and that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, man, I just want to say that, I'm so grateful to be back out and performing again. Yeah, definitely. During the pandemic, there were so many challenges and being back out and connecting with the live audience again. Oh, it's just, I'll never take that for granted, because it's just so powerful. I mean, our first show back last year, I remember our first show back out in front of a live audience was in Florida when we went out on tour. We played over in Clearwater, and I just remember after the first song, after just that, playing that first song and that energy and the applause and just the connection with the audience. I mean, I just broke down. I just started crying. It's just so. It's important. That we have these experiences. Where we can all connect and be together and just support each other, be there for each other. That's.
And if someone wants to find out where you might be touring, or where's the best place for them to go and
Oh yeah.
learn
You can
more?
go on my website. It's jakeshimabukuro.com, JAKESHIMABUKURO.com.
I'll have it in the show notes so people Jake, this has been a joy. I'm a huge fan, and having this conversation with you has been a real delight. And I want to thank you in particular for helping us connect the dots.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for taking your time to listen to this podcast. Please subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any future episodes. If you could also do me a favor and please leave a review on iTunes, I would really appreciate that. Remember, story matters and is the best way to connect the dots.